Welcome back to another enlightening episode of the What the Tech podcast. Today, we actually delve into the important topic that is reshaping our understanding of weight loss and healthcare. Yes, the impact of GLP-1 drugs like Wegovy, Mounjaro, and Ozempic on the marketplace and our health. It's all about shedding some easy pounds today, right? With a dietary hack? Maybe. Or should it be more about a natural approach to wellness? Stick around and find out. Let's go. All right, let's take a moment to step back and really look at this GLP-1 craze that is sweeping the healthcare sector. It almost seems like just overnight, the GLP-1 drugs have become a new it thing in the world of weight loss and diabetes management. But have we really considered all of the implications of such drugs hitting the marketplace and what that means for us? Renowned medical researcher Dr. Martin Ellis actually said, in healthcare, the next big thing isn't always the best thing. And it's intriguing perspective, I think. The GLP-1 drugs specifically, while promising, are still relatively new to the scene. With such a swift acceptance and adoption, one may wonder if we're actually being swept up in the hype or if this is truly a revolution in wellness. And even with all the wonderful things being claimed about the drugs, let's not forget the naysayers. Critics like endocrinologist Dr. Rebecca Lewis, who actually argued that these drugs are just another quick fix solution, warning us actually against the potential long-term healthcare risks. In conclusion, while GLP-1 drugs could potentially reshape our approach to health and wellness, especially around weight loss factors and diabetes, it's crucial to understand the question and investigate and really truly fully understand the implications. Now, as healthcare consumers, we must question the intention, potentially the bias and long-term goals of those promoting these drugs in the first place. After all, our health is our responsibility. So let's keep asking those tough questions and demanding answers. Today, I'm thrilled to bring you a conversation with my special guest, Dr. William Ferro, a renowned figure in the field of medical technology. Dr. Ferro is actually celebrated for his innovative thinking and groundbreaking contributions. Not only is he a highly respected thought leader, but he is also a passionate advocate for the fusion of healthcare and technology, combining his deep understanding of medicine and his connections to healthy living. Now, his charisma and compelling insights make him an engaging presence, and we are beyond excited to learn from his experiences. Welcome to the show, Doc.
Glad to be here. I really appreciate it, Troy. Thank you.
Well, I'm excited about this topic for many reasons, primarily because I think there's a lot for us to unpack here. But I always like to start the show with a little, kind of warm-up question to get to know you a little bit better, besides the mic drop that we do to just introduce you. So on a lighter note, I was hoping you could maybe share something about yourself from maybe your professional journey that was either interesting or a little bit quirky, funny.
Well, I'm a quack. I'm a chiropractor. So who thought I'd be standing here talking about, Ozempic, GLP-1s, weight loss, reversing diabetes type 2. So that alone in itself is a punchline. I do some stand-up comedy, which is like the last known outlet to actually get out there because they can't record you, so it's hard to get canceled. That's my thing is how did a quack chiropractor come to help reverse type 2 diabetes? And now I've probably helped over, just for type 2, 15,000 people. So the journey has been one of taking a lot of barbs and jabs along the way. Being really self-deprecating was helpful. When you first came out of school, I used to take it real personal, like, oh, you're not a real doctor and this and that. And then I started realizing, like, you're right, I'm actually getting people better. So that's mostly what's been the personification of my career, is really learning to be humble, getting out of the way, and just serve the end customer, end user, end person.
Well, I don't think we can answer all of the questions with modern medicine, or just a pill, or an injection, or really anything. I think when we go back to the basis of health, it really has a lot to do with whatever you're putting in your body on a consistent daily basis, the kind of actions that you take on a daily basis. And so I think this is an interesting topic primarily because the primary function of the GLP-1 drugs was for the purpose of diabetes, right? Management. And what we found is that as a byproduct is that it's doing all sorts of other things. I think some positive and some negative things that are happening, both fundamentally from how the body is processing that, but secondarily financially that is happening to our healthcare system and so forth. So before we get started, I was hoping maybe you could give kind of a review of what these drugs are, how they work, how they function within the body, and specifically some of the outcomes that we're seeing, both, again, the positive and the negative sides of things.
Yeah. So, and truthfully, that's my area of expertise is not in pharmacology. But the good news is they don't even know how it works.
Right.
So is that the good news for everybody? They can't tell you really. If you go through all literature, you say, what is the exact mechanism? They don't really know, which is, I think, disconcerting, scary, and very unnerving for me personally. What they're telling people is, well, this is slowing down the digestive process. Again, don't know if that's a good thing, but essentially it says it's slowing the emptying, and then therefore it makes your body basically nauseous in a way, a subacute way of being nauseous where you don't feel like eating. So although you might not feel nausea, which a lot of people do, it's really like just before your body has the visceral response to nausea, it's doing that where you basically don't feel like eating. Interesting enough, I was out to dinner with somebody the other night. A friend of mine, I think before we started the show, saying how many people you know that are on it, and he started eating and he started sniffling and his nose started to drain, and I won't say the name, but I was like, friend, what's going on? By the way, that sounded a little bit like Christopher Walken right there. Friend, what's going on here? So I break into Walken every once in a while. They can't help it, New Yorker in me. But anyway, he was saying, yeah, he's like, I've been taking GLP-1. He's like, I know you don't want to hear that. They're a little bit cautious around me. And he's like, yeah, he's like, my only side effect is every time I eat, my nose starts running. I'm like, oh, that's it. That's fine. And then his wife's like, no, actually, he also has trouble sleeping. He constantly has a lot of gas and bloating. And I'm like, oh, this sounds really great. And I'm like, well, how's it work? He's like, well, this year I lost 20 pounds. Which sounds great, but I'm witnessing people lose 20 pounds in 30, 40 days eating natural food. So the results really aren't that great, really, when you stack them up.
Yeah, and I definitely want to get to some of the philosophy that you live by and some of the results that you're seeing as we kind of unpacked, basically what this drug is doing, the impacts that it's having. And so I'm curious, from your perspective, like, is this a miracle drug? Is it what people think it is? Because losing 10 pounds is not insignificant, or 20 pounds is not insignificant for a lot of people. That could be a pretty big life change, right? And so we're talking a little bit about, okay, well, there's some side effects, right? But are those detrimental to maybe long-term health, or are they just kind of some annoyances that we have to deal with as we are on our weight loss journey? If that's what we're using it for.
Yeah, well, the studies show as soon as you come off of it, you gain it back. So that means you have to be on it for life. So could anyone argue that there's a medication worthy enough to stay on for life? They have no long-term studies. No one knows what this will be 5-10 years down the road. So to me, it's a big gamble. Then every time you mess with the digestive system, the European Union is saying we're flooded with people going to the hospital, paralysis of the digestive system, tons of, issues with their digestive health. And when you look at the signs and symptoms, one of the symptoms, of course, is problems with the digestive system. Now, that's just someone who's experiencing symptoms. If you take away the body's gut health, we now know that, look, like Hippocrates said, look well to the gut for the root of all disease. I can't tell you because I don't have the pharmacological studies here, but it just doesn't seem to me like it's going to be worth it, especially if you have to stay on it for life. If you told me, hey, this is a great way to take somebody who's been hitting a plateau, get them over that plateau, then they can wean themselves off of it and put in diet and lifestyle measures, maybe there's an application for that. If you're taking the diet and lifestyle along with this, help somebody get over that hump that they've been feeling and get them, maybe there's an application for that. But without a diet and lifestyle intervention, truly, then it's not going to work. By the same token, the a lot of these companies are saying, well, we want a step therapy program that says first try diet and lifestyle. Now, most people have tried this. This is the reason why people want this. I don't blame people for wanting this. They're frustrated. And that's because the traditional approaches have failed them. Counting calories, flipping tires in parking lots, drinking shakes, all of that. Mindfulness, right? Like getting yourself psyched up, willpower, pep talks, all of that stuff has failed. But the underlying fundamental reason why all that failed is because we're being poisoned every single day and being gaslit into thinking it's our fault.
Yeah. And so how is this any different? I mean, if our food is poisoning us, and now the pharmaceutical side of the business has been poisoning us, or just basically convincing us that we need a therapy for pretty much everything, which creates this dependency on the industry to deliver whatever result it is that we believe we need, right? So talk about food for a moment, right? Because this doesn't necessarily change your eating habits. It just changes primarily how you feel about eating in the moment. And as soon as you come off of it, you're hungry again, right? Maybe it's a couple weeks or something like that, but you're kind of back at the same place. So if you don't change your behavior around what you eat, what you put into your body, you basically just rebound, right? And it's probably worse.
Agreed. Well, the queen of weight loss struggles is Oprah. Oprah spent how much money into Weight Watchers, right? She's a big shareholder. Her famous line, "You can eat bread," right? Because Weight Watchers is all about counting calories, going to meetings, get attention for suffering because it's such a struggle. It's so hard. She finally just come out and admit she lost all this weight. Yeah, she's taking that drug. And I don't know if you know this, but Weight Watchers bought Weekend Health to now start giving this drug. I mean, America, guess what? Weight Watchers even gave up on you. They are like, well, these people can't do it. Let's give it a drug. And Oprah said something recently. She said, I'm going to misphrase it. She either said obesity or being overweight is a problem of the brain, not of the person. It's a disease of the brain. And right there, if that is what you believe, you've lost every battle. Go look at some of those old films from the 1930s of people just walking down the street, getting the newspaper. Try to find somebody who's obese. What happened? Yeah. Did everyone's brain just break in the last 20, 30 years? Or have we been poisoned? And it's an easy answer. And Troy, not to go on and on, but let's go back to our founding fathers. When they were writing this Constitution, they warned that this would happen, that too much power from a healthcare practitioner, AKA at the time, medicine, but medicine at that time is actually alternative therapies. They were doing more home therapies there until the 1930s when we shifted to pharmaceuticals and John Hopkins was basically taken over by Rockefeller, whole other podcast. But that's what happened. We are now in this monopoly where only two countries in the world allow drug commercials, USA and New Zealand. And so good thing about capitalism is it's a great society. The bad thing is when you're mixing it with healthcare, you could get adverse issues like we have now. And then when you take big pharma and big food and put them together, that's what they're together, you're going to have really a recipe for disaster. And that's the disaster we have. And guess who's fronting the brunt of all this? All the employer groups. All the employer groups have been getting screwed over by the PBMs, by a lot of the healthcare organizations. Your 15, 20% costs going up. And now with this GLP-1, it's wiping through people's pharmacy benefits by June in the year versus it used to go to December. It's reached such a level that employers are starting to wake up and say, wait, enough. Like Mark Cuban with his PBM Cost Plus, he's saying, I don't care if I make a nickel on this PBM. I'm going to disrupt this industry.
Yeah, and I think it needs more mavericks like that saying, wait. You're charging what for these? And, because, again, essentially healthcare some years back became a tax on corporations, right? That's really what it is. And really, is it any less of a tax on the individual because there's usually a cost share to this, right? So I as an individual am paying on average, probably, 40% of my premium. Some employers are much richer than that. And, understandably so, because they have the capital, like the tech industry and so forth, which I work a lot with. But that being said, we've got this problem. And if we're not addressing it at the healthcare level, then we're never going to truly solve that. And so I would argue, like you, that we need to take more of a holistic approach to healthcare in a way that addresses the primary problem, which is the food that we eat, the actions that we take. Because you're right, people today are just getting heavier because there's easy access to food. The food that we're eating is not good for our bodies, right? So we're not even processing a lot of it. It's going straight to our reserves. We're not as active. I mean, you and I, we find ourselves sitting here a lot of times having conversations for 8 hours a day. So we've got to find time on the other end of that. We're not walking to work. There's so many different things. I was actually reading some of the crazy harebrained ideas. I was in Williamsburg last year for Christmas. We almost always go there. Got family up there. And there was all these crackpot ideas in this book about like medical ideas for dieting and all these things like that. And, there was this one in there, it was like, oh, take a tapeworm to lose weight. This is from like the late 1800s. I was like, are you kidding me? This is like something, but how is this any different than that? Like, yes, it's gone through all this testing, but again, we don't know what the long-term implications of this drug are going to be. But what we can rely on is when we're putting high quality food into our body, when we're being mindful about our exercise on a regular basis, like these are all things that are proven to work, right? And so maybe talk about not just the GLP-1 side of things, but like, what is the real solution? Because if that's not it, and I think we can both agree, that's just like sticking your finger in the dam, right? Because eventually, if you come off of it, the dam is going to, so it's not a real fix, right?
Yeah. First thing is you have to be aware of your environment. You have to get out of the body's way. This is a technology show.
Right.
So what are we really attempting to do here? In my world, I'm trying to get people access and harness the best operating system in the world that has millions of years old code, and that's the human body. The body, if you cut the inside of your mouth, it will start to heal itself without you ever having to Google it. So a woman can build a whole human in 9 months. Why is it so difficult to regulate our weight, our mood, and our sleep? That's because there's interference. What I try to tell people is you don't have to do anything more. I'm not asking you to get out there and go to CrossFit 5 times a week or even go to Planet Fitness and watch every morsel of food. What I'm first saying is look at the lotions you're putting on your skin. Start there. If the first ingredient says water, then you know it's going to have an antibacterial. And if you're putting on your skin, A, half of those chemicals are getting into your body. B, that antibacterial is killing off all your natural bacteria. So these hidden human, you have 10 trillion cells, but there's human 300 trillion bacteria. You're actually more bacteria than you are human. And we have been destroying them for years, like our honeybee population, like we've been defiling our soil. The human soil now has been affected. And that's really where your body gets put into low-level chronic inflammation, which makes insulin resistance, makes your capillaries swell, increases your blood pressure, and you gain weight no matter what. And then your body is in fight or flight mode and stress mode because we're always connected to our phones and the fear-based marketing. And so we're always in that state. So your body starts craving sodium, potassium, and sugar. Your brain-gut connection is off, so your body doesn't even know when you're full anymore. You got this chronic inflammation, so your body is storing fat. You can't sleep, which is the number one way you convert fat to energy is when you sleep. You literally breathe it out. It turns into CO2 and leaves through urination and perspiration. Most people think you have to get on a treadmill at 45-degree incline to burn fat. That's not the case. Your body does it all day long. But what we're doing is created so much interference. And then what happens is the food industry says, oh, we got these really stressed out individuals. The more they're on TikTok, the more they're on Instagram and Facebook, the more fear they have, the more they get toxic, they're going to crave this food. And you know how we're going to engineer the food? To reward that brain center. Chick-fil-A sandwich, 40-something chemicals, is perfectly engineered with the right amount of carbs, the right amount of fat. So you eat it, and they don't even say come back again soon or have a nice day. They say, we'll see you tomorrow. It is white collar crack. We have created the addiction, and then we yell at people and make it their fault. We are gaslighting people into thinking that this is all their fault and they have to do more. I'm saying do less. Just look at the chemicals first. Look at the food labels. Give yourself 3 days of no chemicals on your skin and no food labels, and substitute, your coffee creamer for just regular cream, no chemicals, and drink some water, some fruits and vegetables. You will see in 3 days how quickly your body responds and how quickly weight will come off your body. And you'll sit there and you'll think, how is this possible? How is this so easy and effortless? Because you've been taught that it's not easy and effortless. That's all we've been taught. You know why it's easy and effortless? Because that's how your operating system was designed. God did not put you here to suffer. The only reason why we're suffering is because we've created chemicals. And what Jack LaLanne once said when I watched him speak, he went give this whole speech at this health conference. At the end, he said, if you remember nothing from today, remember this. If man made it, don't eat it. And I was like, and that's the simple structure. Man made it, do not eat it.
Oh man, what beautiful advice. So, as you mentioned, this is a technology show. And I think that there are a lot of benefits to technology, and I think there's some downsides, but particularly there's some things that you're doing around technology to help equip people to use that in their journey, right? And so I'd be interested to hear your perspective on not only what you're doing, but some ways that we can leverage technology to help us along with this, I guess, journey of weight loss and just healthy living.
Agreed. And the word journey is used quite a bit, and I'm not going to come after you for saying the word journey. I just want to switch your perspective. When we say journey, we immediately think, I gotta get my packing gear. I gotta camp up, right? And it's a term that's used quite a bit, and it's a term that people have put in front of so many people. And I believe in a way, because that's how they felt. They always felt it was a journey. It shouldn't feel like a journey. It literally should feel like a walk in the park. That is the frame, and it should happen quickly within 24 to 48 hours. It shouldn't be something like after 4 months of hard work, I should finally see. No, if you take in a bunch of salt right now, your blood pressure is going to react right away. So your body's constantly reacting to the environment. So they don't have to really go on a journey. What they do need to do, and this is where technology, to your point, is really important, is technology is good about data, right? Giving data. So when you can't see these microorganisms, they're easy to ignore. When you can't see the glycophosphate in our food, it's easy to ignore. The fact that the rainwater, think about this. Scientists last year said the rainwater everywhere in the world is so full of forever chemicals that it is unsafe for human consumption. How do you think we are going to exist if a little kid can't even put their mouth up and get rainwater? We've poisoned every river and stream. All the drinking water has byproducts of pharmaceuticals in it. So I'm taking it back to say, take the technology, put in your data, your sleep, your mood, your energy. Yes, other people are getting it. You go to the healthcare space, everyone's talking about data. Finally put the data to work for you. See what happens when you do remove the interference. See how it affects your sleep, your mood, your pain levels, of course, your weight. Weight is just one of the indicators. And so for us, it's about, hey, let's get you to take pictures of your lunch and dinner. Let's get you to log everything you ate, your sleep. Pay attention to your surroundings, because what we've found is we know there's no one size fits all when it comes to diet and nutrition. That's why we always employ an elimination reintroduction technique. We also add some fermented foods in there because we want to repopulate their gut health. But what ends up happening is you see somebody actually eating all the right things, and yet they'll hit a plateau, which happens in any type of diet or program you go through. Most people do okay for a while, then they hit a plateau. The reason why they hit a plateau, or as I call it, the great plateau, is they're not figuring out what foods work specifically well for them. And so that's why having data helps them unlock that and say, hey, you know what's weird? When I eat quinoa, everyone else says quinoa is great, but for whatever reason, for me, it doesn't do so well. Or it's the broccoli or gluten or dairy, whatever it is, for some people, it's different. And so that's one aspect where data and technology can really help you. The second way it can help you is you start to become aware of your surroundings. I've had people that they're like, they've done everything, then they hit a plateau. And I'm like, okay, now let's think about your home. What has changed? Well, we just moved into a new apartment, Dr. Ferro. And I don't know, the people before me, how do I know if they were clean with the carpet? And let me check. You know what? I said, go behind the refrigerator. What do you mean? I said, just pull the refrigerator. I said, see any hair back there? Cat hair? She goes, yeah, there's cat hair. I go, you allergic to cats? Yeah, I am. Well, now you know why you're not losing weight. And it's like you would never think that could affect you. And we don't know it because unless you have an allergic reaction that shows up on your skin, you don't think, well, there's no. So to me, technology is a way to enable data for the person. And then with the use of AI, how quickly it can absorb and predict and use it, that's where I think AI is going to change the game for most people, because it's going to start to predict and get to know them and start to give aha moments. And if you have those aha moments, those trophies, those nuggets are going to help you dial in what works best for you. I'm not a guru. There's no better guru out there than what God already put inside you. you're a miracle. We need people to fall back in love with that miracle that's inside them and the healing inherent powers. And it's as easy and effortless.
You know, you mentioned a few things. I love the idea of data. Data's not a new thing. I think we have more and more access to data. But the one thing that I think is really interesting is the question mark that around the statement number 2 was maybe your environmental things that are going on that are either creating a plateau or inhibiting your body from responding properly to whatever you're ingesting. So spend a little bit more time specifically on that, and then I'll get to AI, because I'm always interested in kind of how, you know, the healthcare industry can leverage AI, especially around, you know, gut health and some of the other things you were talking about. So specifically, how would you say that the average person would go about looking at those environmental things, aside from what they're maybe intaking, like their food, of discovering, hey, what am I allergic to, or what could potentially in my environment be negatively impacting me? You already talked about lotion on the skin and things like that, but what are some other examples?
Yeah, so the lotion of skin is number one. Clothing. So our clothes don't wrinkle anymore. You know why?
No, they don't.
Yeah, because they're synthetic.
Right.
Right. Does anyone even own an ironing board anymore?
No.
You don't need it. But
Yeah.
So, and then we're taking this stuff, putting it like a Lululemon pants. Sorry, they might not sponsor your podcast after this, but they take those chemicals, right? And women are putting them at the most sensitive, and men are putting the most sensitive parts of their body, open in exposure, and they're endocrine disruptors.
Mm.
Why are we having such a problem with infertility these days? Why are we having such a problem with, you know, anxiety, depression? Well, from the deodorants to all this chemical stuff that's constantly touching our skin, all of these chemicals that are made in these clothes, no child should ever touch them. When these new kids are growing up, we're giving them plastic teething rings. They're eating off plastic plates. I mean, it's actually insane. And I remember when I was growing up, it was like we didn't have seatbelts. Right? No one wore seatbelts. I was of that generation. And everyone's like, can you believe your parents didn't have seatbelts? And we're like, they were nuts. You know what they're going to say about us? You gave your kid a cell phone. Your kid ate off plastic. You microwaved something for your child. You basically made it toxic and destroyed it. Like, never use a microwave, ever, 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 ever. Not even to heat up water. You should never use it. But look at all the things we've done in our household to make it. So you don't have to look any further than just how we even heat up our food to see how we're destroying ourselves, you know, internally. So they want you to think you need to join up for the local gym, and you need to get the trainer and the guru and the functional medicine and all the newest supplements. And now you have to have mushroom, and then you have to have collagen. And I mean, it's absolutely bizarre.
Yeah, you're right. And you can't even process the collagen that they give you to do
it's
anything
garbage.
with it.
It's a byproduct, and it was another sales gimmick.
Yeah. It's basically just number 2.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all it is.
It is. Yes. Number 2.
Yeah. So okay. The idea of AI in healthcare is not a new idea. You know, like, how do we, you know, put together maybe some of the predictive levers that exist because of the data that we have, and start to coach individually. And this is something you've been working on, right? So I'm interested to hear more about that.
Yeah. So here's my take. You know how we have HIPAA, right? HIPAA, everybody's worried about HIPAA. They don't want, you know, the data to get out.
Right.
Why?
Yeah. I can think of a lot of reasons why they wouldn't too. I understand, you know, like, well, having my personal medical information, but de-identified, it could do a lot of good.
So here's my thing. They don't want anyone to have it, because just like when you take, and I'm not an anti-vaxxer just because I'm a chiropractor, but they definitely don't report adverse reactions well. And so none of us get this data. And there's a reason for that, because it's going to go against sales. So imagine now, just my population of members, we probably have 4,000 to 5,000 new members a month going through the program. Just imagine my population of members from all across the country feeding their interactions of everything, from all the food they eat, their sleep, they start putting in what lotions, they really start putting a lot of data in here. Now I can start to say, you know, what's interesting, other 45-year-old women who live in Long Island, just like you, started putting in all of their healthcare data, and they all have breast cancer, or they all have this, or they're all experiencing this at the same time. So now you can get this population health to say, wait, we have an issue here. This isn't just an issue of people. This is an issue of planet. This is an issue of, here in North Carolina, downstream of that Falls of Neuse River, going all the way to the Cape Fear River,
It's
and
bad.
and downing. It's bad.
It's real
Hampstead,
bad.
North Carolina has alerts all the times like, sorry, you can't drink the water. So
You can't
imagine
even get in the water because
can't
of the
get in it.
amount of waste that has been dumped into the Neuse River. Pig waste is what they were talking about. The amount of feces that's in that river. It kind of looks like it, to be honest
Yes.
with you.
Yeah,
It's kind
it
of
does.
like gross brown, but
Yeah.
I won't get in there.
No, and so now imagine all the people are saying, my AI data is on this, and I'm getting feedback from other people. Number one, I won't be gaslit anymore. I won't be made to think I'm crazy because like there's 10 other people in my block doing the same thing. Instead, everybody's suffering in silence in their home. And great, here comes a new drug. Oh, you know what? COVID, everyone stay home. Everyone gained 21 pounds on average. Average American, it's something between 15 and 21 pounds. And shockingly enough, right after we all gained that weight, what hit the market? The number one weight loss drug in the world, game changer. So was phentermine back in the day. So was every other drug that they tried to put you on. So there's a cycle to this. Imagine people start getting the power. So AI is, if it's unleashed, then other people can not only see how it works for them, but they can see the population around them and see those subtle differences.
Some benchmarking. I think like North Carolina, I noticed this, that they're like in Eastern North Carolina, as an example, there's they're not really talking about, but there's a large amount of like colon cancer, and it has a lot to do with kind of diet and other things that are being contributors to that. So I do think it'd be interesting to kind of see some of that data over time, and how maybe that from a benchmarking standpoint, your group of people versus maybe the people that are entering that, or even the macro data that might exist out there for people that are not kind of being intentional about what they eat and how they kind of I guess manage their environment, because that's what you're asking people to do, is take a look at the things that you're putting into your body. Take a look at the things that you're putting on your body, that whether it's clothes or lotions or things like that. And just be mindful of those things. You're not actually asking anybody to get on the treadmill for an hour, although that might be good for them, for cardiovascular health. You're not even asking for that, because that's probably not even necessary to be at a healthy weight.
When your body gets back to processing carbs, fats, and proteins properly, we would say you are what you eat, but now it's you are you eat, metabolize, utilize, and mobilize. And if your digestive system is off, which I know it is because of all the 70% of us have glycophosphate in our urine, which is weed killer, right? Herbicides, pesticides. So if you can't absorb it and utilize it, even when you're eating well, it doesn't work. What I'm telling people is once you just focus on your digestive health, your gut health, getting the chemicals out, your body starts converting fat to energy. Well, now you have extra energy. So that extra fat you have around your body, you're going to convert it to energy. Fat is one of the best forms of energy we have. Then you'll feel like going for a walk. So instead of me dragging you into the gym, I'll be dragging you out of the gym. We have this perception that someone who goes to the gym all the time somehow is just a better human being, right? They have more willpower, more dedication. That's not the case. And in some cases, right, there's some people that they've challenged themselves, but they get such a payoff from it that it's continued. Luckily, they were in that spot. But many of us been exposed to 256 chemicals before we were born. We were given round and round of antibiotics that have been destroying our gut microbiome. I don't know if you know this. One round of antibiotic makes your gut in dysbiosis. That's the way, basically just saying poor gut health for a full year. When has any doctor ever told you, hey, I've given this antibiotic, but we're going to have to recover with some good fermented foods, some good high fiber foods like an apple, so it can go to your intestines and rot. So the good, nope, never. And that's why we have overuse of antibiotics, which the person who invented antibiotics warned against the overuse of this, and now we see the fallout. More people are dying of resistant antibiotic exposure than ever. So my point being is that your body will want to exercise when you liberate the energy versus having to exercise. When you feel like you have to, that is actually the worst time because you're already inflamed, you're not ready for it, and you're only going to make things worse.
So I'm curious your perspective, because we're talking about a drug that is supplementing, the desire to either be healthier or weigh less, or all good things. Are there supplements that you do like to a diet, or do you feel like diet alone would would be the thing to get enough of the nutrition that you need to be healthy.
Diet alone. If you're going to spend extra money, spend it on good, high quality food and good quality clothes that are made from cotton and get rid of the synthetic stuff. Spend all your money and give yourself a little extra time in the morning so you don't have to reheat. So my boys laugh because in the morning I get up, I cook them a breakfast, and then I make them their lunch. I put it in a thermos. And yeah, it'd be easy for me to take the leftovers, throw them in the microwave, throw them in a thermos, but I put it in a pan, I put a little broth, I steam it back to life so it still has the nutrients, and I put it in a thing. That's the best thing I can do for them and showcase to them. They'll maybe get, I don't have that many good traits. Maybe they'll get 1% of my traits, right? They're already humans pre-designed to what they're going to do. But if I can do anything for my kids, it's show them how to care for their body, if nothing else, and keep chemicals away from it. Because you look at people from the blue zones or Sardinia, they're not running and flipping tires in parking lots. They're having pasta. They're having bread. They're living to 100. They're happy. Yes, part of that is also they're not taking cars and they're walking around, but they're not uber obsessed about doing workouts and a calm meditation app and all this other stuff. Like they don't do that. They just don't live in an environment that is stressful. Just take the pasta. We dry pasta in 3 hours. There it takes 3 days. Our gluten doesn't have a chance to break down. That's why, did you even hear of the word gluten when you were a kid? Peanut allergies? No one had allergies. Now everybody has an allergy. What did we do? We've poisoned ourselves.
Do you think it's more the genetically modified or all of the chemicals that are on our food?
All of the above. So what's interesting is, so now you can say, they'll say, this amount of, chemical is proven to be safe in humans. Okay, I'll buy that. I'll buy that you did enough studies to tell me that amount of chemical is safe in humans. Did you ever then study that chemical combined with this chemical, combined with this chemical, combined with this chemical? No, you didn't. So do not tell me you have a scientific experiment until you've taken all the variables, and a human has too many variables in their life to tell me that is safe in consumption. And we're not getting away from it. There's no pure, the pure life is not for our generation. It might take decades, maybe, centuries before someone really gets, and we need to purify the world again. But for now, we're not going to, get away from it, but we can do what we can do to avoid it.
So what do you feel from an ethical standpoint is the obligation of organizations that have employees, right, that are aware of these sorts of things to help protect them? Because I think that the average person doesn't a lot of times know what's going on. So I do feel like for those that do understand either what these drugs are, like the GLP-1 drugs, or some of the chemicals that are entering people's bodies, should be kind of shouting at the mountaintops. So there's this idea of wellness within organizations that, like, are we going far enough to support the education process and make sure that people are equipped to be healthy?
So, what's always going to move this needle is chasing the dollar, right? So now it's finally got to the point where employer groups are saying, this is unsustainable, or we're feeling it. And now we've gotten to the point where we can't my wife works for a Fortune 100 company, and it used to be crazy great benefits, this and that. But even that company now has been contributing less and less and less. And we've watched how much we pay for healthcare go from a very manageable number to unbelievable. It's cutting into her paycheck. So what I believe these employer groups have maybe not a responsibility, but it's their bottom line. Just like they have responsibility as shareholders to grow revenue, they also want to protect the profit. So if they just focus on protecting profit, they say, well, what's a line item we can effectuate? One would be healthcare costs. How do you do that? Training the employees, just like you train them to be sensitivity training or productive training. Add this type of training. So when Better Health goes into an organization now, we're like, look, we're not trying to coach people. We're trying to train them. We're trying to train them in less than 30 days to become independently healthy, to not have to depend on the healthcare system. Do I believe in medicine? 100%. If you go to the hospital, there's so many great medicines out there. There's some genetic, diseases out there. Medicine is an amazing field. Let's let them focus on those things versus the easily avoidable chronic conditions, which is really driving all the costs, 70% of it. And have the employer group help train people, and then say, let me make it accessible to have healthy food. If someone's not is living in a food desert, or we have the factory somewhere, that the closest thing is a Dollar Tree, let me make sure that if I want to have, people come work there, that they can have access to affordable, healthy food. So if they do that, that will lower the burden of the cost. So I think it's an employer's best interest. I don't think it's their burden. It's in their best interest to control those costs. And the best way to do that is to train employees and make it a movement, and get out of the medical paradigm. Like, well, we just need more wellness exams and wellness checks. You know what my friend calls those? The $1 million wellness fair. Because someone goes in there and inevitably their blood pressure's up, or they have an issue. They send them to the ER, and it's just that he had bad Taco Bell and he had indigestion, and you just spent like 10 grand because the guy had indigestion. So that doesn't work. What works is getting to the root cause, opening people's eyes up to this. And I think in the organization we've been working with, they don't believe it, right? They don't think it's going to work. So we actually have to give it away for free first to let them try it. And then when they come work with us, we say, we'll only charge you for the people that actually are successful on it. And it actually made us better as an organization to have to be, to do those types of things. But I don't know if it's an employer responsibility. More so, you should get in the game if you want to preserve your costs.
Yeah, I mean, it's just smart business, right? Like, if you're going to spend millions of dollars on healthcare premium and basically contribute to the black box of healthy living, right?
Right.
Making an investment in better choices through coaching and through technology, and potentially, I know you do food delivery as well, and food prep and some of the other things. I think it just makes sense for you to kind of preemptively or proactively help support what you want the outcome to be, which is healthy, right? Absolutely. So obviously we both have a little bit of a bias on that side because we know the implications, both of these drugs, but also of unhealthy living and eating. So I'm curious, just from, kind of bring it full circle. We've been talking about these drugs. We've talked about the implications. We've talked about potentially what we believe to be the solution. What haven't we talked about that, we need to bring, kind of into the forefront that might be important?
Well, I think it would be important for me to go back to the point where it's not their fault. I think that's the hardest thing for me to get people to do because they're so cynical and doubtful. So this is the word disease, right? So dis means without, and ease. Your body disease means it's without ease. And I say the D in doubt, D in IS is doubt. People are so doubtful because they've tried everything, it doesn't work. And that doubt is really what's holding a lot of people back from being successful. And the I is for inflammation. So they have this inflammation, and S is for stress. It's the stress, chemicals, toxicity that causes the inflammation, that causes their body not to work right. And then over time of trying everything, they end up in doubt. We went to an organization, they do the billing, the CEO does the billing and management for like 6,000 health clubs. Here's the irony of this whole scenario. Here's a guy, 70 pounds overweight, does the billing and management for health clubs across the country, right? Irony. This is in 2011. He decides to go through my protocol. He's like, can you get on the phone with my wife? She does a lot of the cooking. So I get on the phone with his wife and him, and I can tell immediately she was like just not into it, right? I was like, wow. And this was over the phone. I could feel it. And finally I said, no, Jan, listen, I feel, the resistance here. Can we just get that out of the way and tell me what's about? She was, Dr. Ferro, it's not you. It's my husband. I said, okay, tell me. He has no willpower and motivation. She's like, I'll cook him anything. I've cooked it before. I've done this so many times. And every time I do it, I find wrappers in the lint trap of the dryer. I find wrappers in the drawers in the bathroom. I hear when he goes to work, his employees rat on me that he went out to get fast food. And she's like, I don't know if I can deal with this anymore. She's like, we have 4 kids. He's going to die of a heart attack and leave us, on this planet. And I said, okay, Jan, I hear what you're saying. But let me ask you a question. How many employees does Paul have? I don't know, Paul, how many? 435. All right. How many clubs does he support? 6,000 accounts. How much in money do they process a year? $3.7 billion. And he has how many kids? 4. How many are in college? 3. Okay, 3 kids in college. All right. Beautiful house, build a beautiful life. I go, Jen, how did this guy do this without willpower and motivation? And she's like, well, in that world, he's got a lot of motivation. I said, or Jan, he built this all. It's so much stress mentally, emotionally. Add that to the chemical stress that this guy's constantly in fight or flight mode, which means his adrenal glands are firing. It's like he's running an internal marathon every day. So when his brain shuts off, he's going to crave sodium, potassium, and sugar. And guess what? All the food around him is engineered to hit that center. And that's why it's almost impossible, because his brain and gut are not connecting anymore. How about you let him off the hook, and let's see what happens if we stop doing deprivation, stop doing punishment, and just fuel the body the way God intended it, and let's see what happens. Well, of course, the guy loses 75 pounds, comes off everything, and has kept it off for over a decade now that, we're still friends. My point being is, you're an employer, you're an entrepreneur, you're working your butt off. You let your health a lot of times go to the wayside. Your employees are no different. So everybody should get on the same playing field. No one's better than anybody. We're all living in this toxic soup together. Let's come together. Let's make some opportunities around socially acceptable health versus going on another weight diet program, going on another medication. Let's help each other avoid the stresses that are causing the problems to begin with.
Man, if I was going to end the show on that, which I'm going to, that would be like mic drop. I will say, like, you are incredibly passionate about this, and I know 100% that we're being poisoned every single day. And, the truth just needs to get out. And I want you to talk a moment, just a quick moment as we kind of close the show here, Dr. Ferro. Like, what kind of results are you seeing? You just gave one example, but like how quickly are people like just getting right on track with what you're doing? Because I love what you're doing at Better Health.
Yeah, so there's a little bit of the protocol. The protocol is, hey, look, we get everybody and say, give me 3 good days, right? Because eventually I'd say they're full of doubt. All right, 3 days, no alcohol, no artificial sweeteners. I give them a coach. The coach maps this out because we know they're stressed out. They know they've tried everything. They're still thinking it's a diet. They want to count their calories. They want to weigh their food. We're like, don't do any of that. We get them started for 3 days, get them through that first week. They start to see 3 to 4, 5 pounds come off in the first week, obviously depending how much they have to go. But week 2, they say, wow, my cravings have gone away. My acid reflux has gone away. And I'm like, all right, well, your blood pressure is probably down too. Check with your doctor. The doctor's coming off their medication. Then their insulin's coming down. Their aches and pains. They're spending so much money on neuropathies and chasing this. Next thing you know, they have no more aches and pains, even if they have spinal stenosis. So within 3 or 4 weeks or less, they're coming off many medications, if not reducing them. But ultimately, they're getting empowered to realize, oh this is how to do it. It doesn't mean like someone loses about 5 to 7% usually within the first 30 days. They'll maintain it, but just like life, maybe a couple months down the road, 6 months down the road, something happens in their life. They may gain back a couple of pounds, but they're empowered to know, I know how to take it off. I don't have to just go, run around the block 1,000 times. I could just get back to eating healthy again. And that's the best part. It's an empowerment protocol, if it's nothing else.
Well, I appreciate your invaluable insights. And I know that the impact of these drugs and future drugs are certainly going to continue to fool people about the best ways to lose weight and to approach healthcare just in general. And so you shed some light on this. Any final thoughts as we're kind of closing here that people should be thinking about?
I don't want people to feel shame if they're thinking about the drug or they're on it. We've gotten so far, I think we've had a lot of the health plans are sending people as to help people come off it. I think we've got 400 or 500 people already that within 30 days we got them off of the medication, and hopefully that medication got them some good weight loss and results, and now they're ready to make the lifestyle change. So I don't want anyone to feel like, well, it's working for me, and I can't believe you said, no, I get it. I get what you're doing. So that's one. For all of your entrepreneurs out there, the question I have for you is fail fast. The advice is fail fast. That's what helped me get here. I just kept trying and trying. So fail fast. Ignore competition. The world is abundant. There's more people out there to help. You'll only drag yourself to the lowest common denominator there. And have a servant heart. Just build value, and have a servant heart.
I love that. A lot of Christian values there. Obviously, you and I are in sync with that. I think, God has created us to do amazing things. And when you give it the right kind of input, you get the right output. I think it's really as simple as that. So thank you for your sage advice today, Dr. Ferro. I'd also like to say to each of you, stay curious. Never stop asking questions. Don't just take the narrative the way it is. I think that if you didn't get anything else out of this conversation, it was definitely just, be curious about those things. And stay tuned for next week's episode and keep teching. See you next week. Bye.